crew, what's going on? It's your host Suave Q, you already know. And on this dose, I wanted to speak to you guys about something real quick. Now, y'all are well aware that I am not the excuse maker. I'm not a firm believer in systemic racism, the cops being crooked, the cops being a gang out to get black people, because observable reality and the data just doesn't support such an egregious notion. However, I have seen that the system is capable of corruption, and I don't deny that there is some corruption within the system, particularly when you factor in people who want to be greedy and people who want the career-changing big fish. They see that as an opportunity to promote themselves, to elevate themselves in the eyes of whatever company or whatever distribution they're a part of, who they work for. They want to make themselves look good. And a lot of times this greed can result in ruining the lives of others, especially at the expense of being innocent, which is typically what the law is supposed to uphold. Innocent until proven guilty. Well, there are a couple of examples that I can think of in real time, in real life, in which this narrative is not honored, especially by our court system. I want you guys to tell me what you think about this. Say there are individuals who are currently incarcerated, who have life sentences, who could be exonerated if the forensic evidence was valued in the case. However, due to the fact that the prosecutor wants his shining moment, he wants to be the one who catches that career-changing big fish, he won't allow that to happen. He takes what he knows and he goes on ahead and he ends up prosecuting and convicting the assumed assailant in the case. This is something that I've seen happen. This is something that I've personally experienced. What happens when you have enough circumstantial evidence to convict someone, but the forensic evidence, on the other hand, could prove that individual's innocence beyond reasonable doubt? Do you still roll with the circumstantial evidence? Do you completely disregard the forensic evidence that has been presented, the holes in the story, the incoherence of what may have transpired when concerning that individual and the crime that they've been convicted of committing, when in reality the evidence, forensic evidence at that, can exonerate that individual? I want you guys to think about that for a second. Under what possible circumstances would a case be objectively examined where you have both circumstantial evidence, which is enough to convict individuals in a lot of cases, even though eyewitness testimonies can prove erroneous, they still say that circumstantial evidence is relatively reliable, and even in some cases more reliable than direct evidence. But when you have circumstantial evidence on one hand and you have forensic evidence on the other hand, and you choose to disregard the forensic evidence in favor of the circumstantial evidence because you fear that the forensic evidence may actually exonerate the individual that you're trying to persecute, which would result in the biggest win of your career, you have nothing to lose, and you're going to do everything that you can to make sure that you win that case. Well, there are lawyers out here that have been involved in that kind of motive, where they have seemingly exhibited bias on their own behalf from their own greed in favor of promoting their own career, getting where they want to be. And it's resulted in destroyed families. It's resulted in destroyed homes, especially with black men who can't be home to raise their kids, who can't be home to see their kids graduate, who can't be home to see their kids grow up, to see their accomplishments, see their achievements. All these things that would have a devastating impact on the individual behind bars, and even exponentially more so due to the fact that that individual has evidence that could be presented that would prove their innocence. So I'm going to let you guys decide, because this has happened. I've seen it. And as I said, although I'm not an advocate for the cops being a gang out to just eliminate and lock up black people because most of the time, 90% of the time, they are guilty of the crimes that they commit. But then you have those outlying circumstances that shouldn't exist because an individual wants to catch the big fish and elevate their career. There shouldn't be instances where you may have jurors who have criminal records themselves. Doesn't that seem a little contradictory and illegal at that? Or when you have DNA evidence at the site of a murder that doesn't align with the DNA of the suspect. What do you guys think about that? Because to me, I'm all for the system locking people up if they indeed get a fair trial. But if you don't get a fair trial and you're just thrown behind bars due to circumstances and hearsay, and judges and prosecutors know that it's hearsay, yet they don't allow a retrial, yet they don't allow you to be exonerated, then what does that say about the justice system that's supposed to provide justice in the name of fairness and equality when it doesn't adhere to those principles? I'm going to let you guys decide. I'm going to let you guys decide because, as I said, this is very real. It's happened. It's affected many, even myself, which is why I took this special moment today to call it out and talk about it. Because those years that people spend behind bars and possibly even on death row, people being wrongly offed by the government for crimes that they didn't commit. Oh yes, we know this has happened numerous times throughout history, especially in Black America. It has happened. How does that make you feel? And I know many of you can relate and attest to this because we all know somebody that has probably been wrongly jailed, wrongly locked up, wrongly incarcerated for something that they didn't do. And when the opportunity presents itself to prove their innocence, it's shot down continuously. And yet those individuals still stick with their innocence no matter how long it's been. I think about the movie Life. Martin Lawrence, Eddie Murphy, being locked up for life over a crime that they didn't commit. The judge just willingly gave them life, convicted them, threw them behind bars. And throughout all those years, they maintained their innocence. They told the warden, it's a hell of a lot longer when you didn't do anything. And he said, half the men in this prison swear they're innocent. Don't you find that funny, Claude? And he said, you have to excuse me if I don't laugh, because it's not when you're actually innocent. That's how unfortunate life can be. Somebody done me wrong. It's a very, very real thing. You guys tell me what you think. Have you experienced this? Has it happened to you? If so, show your support. I'll put a petition link in the description box. Go sign it. Because that situation is exactly the kind of situation that I'm talking about, that I'm highlighting right now in this video. So if you guys know what that feels like, you had a family member, you've experienced it, it's affected you some way, somehow, then make sure you show your support by signing that petition so we can highlight some of the disingenuous processes that go on in our justice system simply to convict a black man at the behest of you willing to gain more in your career. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Suave Q, aka the Q pill. I'll see y'all on the next dosage.